department. So in essence, you're saving less than a penny by hiring matter of fact, it's .009, I think it is, a penny per person per day to bring in somebody that we have trained, that we know, that is gonna fit for this community. So the savings is compared to what we're getting, is minuscule.
I mean, the auxiliary and special police officer and reserve program has been in effect for the 11 years that I've been here, and it's gone back many years. I mean, all of our offices, pretty much almost all of them, have come up through that process. And to bring an outsider in, like I said, we would look at that if that was a viable option, or if we had to do that. In my situation, I think it would be a last case scenario to do that, but we would do it if necessary. But to see what it would do to the programs that we've had for so many years, and what we've accomplished, and what we've actually got out of these offices. When they start as auxiliary offices, they spend over $3,500 to buy their own equipment. It doesn't cost the town a penny to do this. They work in a volunteer capacity for years, some of them, and it doesn't cost us any money. And then these offices go on, 3 of our offices have gone on for 6 months and gone to the academy on their own. Didn't cost us a penny. So you can't say that we haven't got our the good works out of all these offices that we put through, and to bring someone in from another department and to destroy the opportunities for someone that have come up through these ranks, I think would be devastating for morale. And also I think it would affect us economically and how we look at the future.
How long was this current person in?
He's been here a year.
A year as a reserve?
As a special.
Through the program.
No, our special program is a requirement of the officers to come in. They have to do everything that, all the basic training that all reserve and full-time officers have to do, and they have to ride along. That's on their own time. So they'll have hours and hours of experience in before they get into the reserve role. Now, on top of that, our special officers are trained better than any other department's reserve officers. So you're not just, if you grab somebody that's a special officer as opposed to a reserve officer from another community, he's gonna be better trained already.
Okay, so one more question.
Sure.
I know I'm sounding difficult.
No.
But is it reasonable, can the guy work his shift and then go to school on a different shift?
No, all these are in the academy. They lose all their police status, all their police powers. They're considered a student officer.
Okay.
And that's statutorily because of any injury. If he was working today, it'd be under the 111Fs, so we would be responsible. But when they're in the academy, they're a student officer. We're not responsible for them. It would be the normal workman's comp situation. So we would save money in that aspects too.
More questions?
I think you got a more total breakdown on the full overtime costs associated with it. But basically, like I said, the $35,000 was for the academy, and we just reallocated. We tried. What you see with full-time overtime and reserve officer funds, it's every year it goes up, it fluctuates, it goes down, it goes up, and a lot of that depends on it's contractual. So when overtime goes out, full-timers are allotted a certain amount based on what it is. If it's vacation time, they're offered 50% of the shifts, and then reserve officers are offered 50% of the shifts. So some years we'll have a lot of reserve officers working, that cost goes up, the overtime goes down. And then some years, the last few years, we haven't had a lot of reserve officers working a lot of hours. So the percentage of 50-50 has been skewed more for full-time officers than it has been for reserve. So that's why those lines bounce up and down over some years. So it's really hard to come up with exact figures. And what we did is we moved $19,000 from the reserve line into the full-time overtime line to compensate for the percentage of time that the full-time officers are working. So it just moved from one line to the other line. We're just trying to get a little better perspective on the actual expenses allocated.
If you also take a look at the explanations that we did on the overtime explanations, you'll see, according to that, categories that are highlighted in red. That would be on this one here, I'm sorry, I passed in a bunch of stuff. It should say, first thing should be sick time, contractual. Everybody see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So the categories that are highlighted in red on the left are items that, programs that we run, that aren't mandated or contractually obligated. So basically, if a program, if monies weren't there and we had to eliminate some funds from there, we'd have to eliminate some of these programs. And these are the programs that we offer that, like I said, aren't mandated. So for example, the school resource officer,
Which we have Masco people here for their appointments.
Oh, great.
They would know
But we
all
have,
about your.
but we do have the school resource officer. We share that with 2 communities. And I think it's an essential part of what we have for our community, is to keep in touch of what our kids are doing in school, having them build a bond with our school resource officer, and getting in tune with what the kids are going through nowadays. We have the CART task force, we have the DARE program, we have the truck team that's on here, and I just put a little note on the truck team, and every time you see green is money coming back to the town. But the truck team, in essence, any overweight items, any overweight trucks that we find on the roadway, those fines, once it's adjudicated, will go right back into the general fund of the town. So those funds go right back. Same with marijuana citations, same with the firearms licensing, same with,
Are you able to collect the citation money from marijuana?
Actually, we have a very high percentage of,
Do you really?
yeah, we do, which is surprising.
yes.
Under
Because in
the way-
Boston, they just seem to walk away and say, yeah, thanks for the ticket.
Right, and
There's
they,
no enforcement.
well, there isn't enforcement, but they're coming up with new legislation to make that enforceable. It's kind of a haphazard law that they just put into place, you know, with all this. We're still trying to, part of my pun here, but weed our way through the whole thing. So, but we're in essence having a good ratio as far as the people are concerned.
Is that because they're local users?
No,
No?
no. A good portion, a lot of the portions of the marijuana citations we'll see at during the Topsfield Fair. But not just because they're local, but. Any other questions about the overtime aspect of it?
Thank you, did a great job.
I think if we go down to the assigned duty column where there's a reduction of 2,159, that's part of the agreement when Detective Sergeant Hayward gets promoted to captain, that he was covering me, he was my number 2 officer, so when I go out on vacation, under the contract, he would be paid, so now he's not getting paid. So because of his rank structure, would be a captain, so we saved money there. And then the other $600 on the end is a reduction in the specialty pay, again, based on the positions of the officers we have now, so.
The assigned duty looks like an add, not a decrease.
There's a couple of things different from the original budget that I'll have to go back and take a look at, but also the 19,000.
I was looking at my laptop.
The 19,000, the overtime for reserves, which you said was taken off of the budget, and the budget you originally submitted has the 19,000 in it. So the bottom line of these are completely two different totals.
We didn't submit that. This is the budgets that we submitted.
this was what was submitted originally, this is new tonight.
With no, when we went, well, I'm sorry, but when we came in, remember that we had the change thing, and you said you didn't it out to people?
This is the one that was on the, that everyone here has, the, January 3rd, that was,
Right, but the chief gave, remember we came in with that, but that's okay.
Well,
We'll figure it out.
Sort it out.
yeah.
And then if we go down to the other, we kept within the FinCom's recommendations of a zero increase. And part of that, if you want to go individual lines, are mostly reductions and redistributing some of the monies just to be more accurate in the accountability on the line items. But basically,
That's
the
line
RECC
item of the budget.
has passed on Verizon our air cards for our mobile data terminal, bills of about $160 a month. So we're looking at a little over $2,000 that we had to assume the cost that they kick back to us now, that they weren't going to pay anymore. So we're eating that out of
So the
our.
rec pushed it up to you?
Yes, yeah, they pushed a lot of expenses. We were very fortunate, that was the only expense that we initiated when we went to the RECC, that we had them covered. A lot of other towns, Wenham has over $20,000 in costs that they have to assume now, that the rec was paying, and we're very fortunate. I kept it very low. We decided to use a phone tree system as opposed to giving up our phone lines like Essex did. And now they have to assume all those costs again. So, you know, we looked at it, I think, very studiously when the opportunity came to go up there, and we've been very fortunate, you know, reducing the costs. So, I mean, a $2,000 hit after 5 years, looking at what these other departments have to pay, I think it's pretty economical. I don't like the fact that it got pushed back to us, but there again, they're in a budget deficit themselves and they stuck it on us. So I don't agree with it, but we did the best we can. So, but we kept to the zero increase guidelines on our other account.
Okay. Other questions?
Just a quick one, the very last line of the radios, is that an annual capital expense? Or-
The radio equipment?
Yeah.
Yes, that's also to, this is where we try to replace our radios, you
It's
know,
like
so
one a
much.
year?
Well, it used to be up to 3, and now they cost $4,800 a piece, so it's 1 now. That's how much Motorola has increased the cost of the radios. We used to get 2 for the price of 1, and now it's almost 3, and now we're down, it's 1 for almost $5,000.
Did they just jack up the price? or
They changed the
change?
whole system now, you know, and everything, and it's all encrypted and all this stuff, and it's like, and they kind of, you know, they kind of have us,
They have no competition,
unfortunately.
it sounds like.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's the way it is, and it's what the government is all gonna be going to, and what we have to standardize to, so.
Gotta love rents.
So we try to, you know, one a year, and just try to upgrade them as best we can.
All right.
That's the operating budget.
Yep.
We still have, you know, say, rolling capital, the capital.
We're gonna be coming in for 1 car, an SUV. This would be the last changeover for our vehicle with the outdated equipment on it. So all of our vehicles, frontline SUVs, would all be standardized now. So all the equipment would be identical. And after that, the cost would be reduced because we wouldn't have to replace any of the new light bars or any of the new systems. So you'd see a major decrease in that after next year. But we see, due to our fleet maintenance being maintained and the way the offices maintain the equipment, and we've been very fortunate to, say through accidents, we were able to get the cars replaced. Unfortunately, I was in an accident earlier this year, and it wasn't my fault. I was hit from behind, and fortunately,
It wasn't me.
no one was hurt. But we were able to replace a 6-year-old Cruiser with a brand-new car at no cost to the community. And when these things happen, and we had that happen to another Cruiser a few years ago too. So where we used to be able to go 2 years with 1 car, and then a 2-car purchase 1 year, and then single, and then 2. We haven't been able to do that, so we haven't done that twice, so we saved in essence almost $70,000 by not purchasing those additional cars. So knock on wood, we've been very fortunate, and, you know, we're only gonna ask for the one car, and hopefully that'll stretch us out. And again, after next year, you'll see some considerable cost savings as the switch over of the equipment takes place onto the newer cars.
The other thing I do have a breakdown, I didn't copy it up for you for some strange reason, but, and I think we explained this to you, Jay, before, was a cruiser is not like a normal vehicle. It's not like a personal vehicle. The mileage is only one aspect of it. We have to be concerned with the idling time also. And idling time can really kill an engine. So anything, I think they give the equivalency of a 100,000-mile cruiser is like a 500,000-mile taxi cab. And there's a multitude of reasons on why cars are idling throughout the course of a shift. And it runs 24/7. And God forbid that we have an emergency and we let our fleet go and somebody doesn't get the response that they need. Or we have a program now where it's saving us money by the replacement aspect of it because of the wear and tear on these cars. So it'll come out of the warranty, the 100,000-mile warranty, and we're gonna spend more money in repairs, type of thing. So we try to keep it on the program. As a matter of fact, it's the same program that the state police has just recently implemented with their cruisers. But I wanna say that we were first in doing it.
Will the vendor warranty a car that idles for mileage?
I'm sorry?
Will the vendor warranty a car for mileage, the powertrain?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Even in the idling?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yeah, the thing is, by the time they're turning them in, they are well over.
Oh, they're over 100,000 miles.
Well, I know, I'm just,
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah.
in
Surprised
that
that they did that.
100,000, 500,000, I'm just
Yeah.
sort of like.
Well, just 100,000 less isn't 100,000 like your
Right,
car.
right, yeah.
But, and we see from prior experience, once we hit that 100,000 mark, it's like we start seeing
Okay,
catalytic
gotcha.
converters go, we start seeing transmission issues. It's like you get around 117, 120, and then you start losing transmission. I don't know if they're all programmed to go that
Build it,
way,
build
but.
it.
No,
Right.
you've just
You know.
cycled more exhaust
Yeah,
gas.
so
Stuff.
we're trying, I mean, you know, we usually keep our cars for about 5 years,
Yeah.
you know, which is amazing, you know, for a police department to run a car that long. You know, but again, you know, it's really, the officers do a fantastic job, that they really maintain their equipment and they don't beat it up.
And we're pretty fortunate too, because we have an officer that was a former mechanic that handles all the small repairs that we need done, as opposed to bringing them to, you know, the factory or mechanics that have it done, so.
All set?
So that wasn't too bad. I'm still, you
It was
know,
actually- The level of detail was excellent.
Yeah.
I just,
You know.
you're open, gave a lot of information, I just
Well,
totally appreciate
there's
that.
been a lot of questions by some of the citizens this year, and we just wanted, there's nothing to hide, everything's above board, and we just wanted to make sure that you understood what the issues are. And I've been asked some questions by the public, and it's hard to answer them one-on-one, but when we have the ability to explain to the committee and we have the public here tonight, you know, we're open to those responses, so. You know.
There wasn't, I'm trying to remember, because I'm going to the office today, all my stuff that left here. There wasn't anything substantial that you were looking to do to the building this year.
Oh,
Oh,
wait,
we
did
forgot
did we
to-
bring him?
Gary has.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh, well,
Sorry.
now that you mention that,
Oh,
you know,
Kelly is coming in next week.
Right.
With the Capitol.
yeah,
well,
this
this just happened
we-
last week.
we have a few pictures to show you, but I know this is something.
I didn't know about this one then.
Yeah.
No, this is
wasn't
something,
its setup.
We didn't know about this.
we've been
This is just
informing the.
There's a couple of photos. We,
Here's
like
more.
the chief said, we've been informing everybody that the plumbing aspect of our building is starting to deteriorate.
Is your building old, or was it
It's
just built for?
1935.
Oh, okay.
It was the state police
It was,
building.
you know, it's 35,
We got it
and
for
some of
free.
those actual cast iron pipes from the 1930s that are starting to crack, and if you see the pipes that are full, we had issues with, because we've replaced a lot of the toilets in the department, we've had water issues. Now the kitchen drain line system has clogged and cracked, and there was a waste pipe that had actually split, and I guess cast iron doesn't, it either corrodes, which this has corroded, and we had an issue with our generator piping which corroded, But it's a larger drain pipe, which I wasn't aware of, but back then they did the big cast iron drain pipes. I guess what happens is you get the residue buildup, and when you try to clean them, it's like going through like pudding, they say, and it doesn't clean, and it just fills up and fills up. Whereas if you have a smaller pipe like they do in normal houses now, the water actually flows and cleans it out. So that whole section from our kitchen to where the main line comes, so where the toilets come from the second floor and third floor, had to all be replaced. And then we found out there was another cracked line further down that went to the leach field, to the septic tank. And we were getting sewer gases, and we couldn't use our cells, and it was pretty disgusting for a while. So we actually have a, one of the plumbing contractors coming to actually smoke the lines to see where the leaks are in the building. So it's a gem of a building. It's a beautiful building. It's built like a bomb shelter, but we're dealing with a building that's 80 years old. The internals, you know, the body's good, but the inner workings are starting to fall apart. So this is something that I've been informing the board on, that we have to take a serious look at. We were very fortunate last year where we got the warrant article for the exterior building, and we weren't able to get it painted last year because of change in the sheriff's administration. They cut back on the prisoners to do. And again, I told you we got a bid for $46,000 to paint our building. Well, we usually have the prisoners do it for nothing, other than sandwiches. You know, again, that's another option that we utilize, is prisoner labor. So hopefully in the spring we'll have the building painted to take care of it.
Plumbers.
But I tell you,
Not pull over
the interior changes that we upgraded when dispatch left was all done by prisoner labor, and there was some good contractors.
That was an unfair civil rights.
So it's something I think that Kelly's been made aware of through my presentations to the board, that these buildings, this building is a gem, like I said, but we're gonna start looking at some serious plumbing issues. And our plumber who's doing the work is gonna start estimating specific areas so we can replace a little at a time. But that's his recommendation, that we start doing that, so.
I forgot to mention one other program that we just started. It's called propertyroom.com. It's a program for found property, excessive property that we have from investigations, things along that line. We're required to hold an auction once a year by state law. And these people come in, they take that property from us, they do an online auction, and the money from the online auction goes right back to the general fund. Now, we were able to also include in it some of the older equipment that is from our department. For example, old equipment from like the Crown Vics that we used to have. And we're able to have them take in, they can auction that off too. So rather than just dispose of that type of equipment, we're trying to get some revenue in for them. However minor it might be, but if we can get 50 cents in for it, let's get 50 cents in for it.
It's almost a stapler.
It's a stapler at a yard sale.
But I would say you guys are like almost as friendly as Canadian cops. I said some more friendly than your average cop would run into, but I run into. So every time I've gone down to something.
We're here to serve the public, you know, with respect, and you know, we're treated with respect, and our officers really enjoy working here, and we like serving you, so.
But just don't violate any of the citizens in our town, because we're not that friendly when we go out to find them.
We're not nice to the bad guys.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for your time.
The schools appreciate the Topsfield police.
Well, thank you. We appreciate the schools too.
Great job.
Come say hi. I will. I know, I haven't seen you much. It's good. I drive like an old lady. I'll speed when I'm coming down the hill on Route 1. I'll speed, then we'll have an opportunity to see each other.
Did you get the good side?
You have nothing but good sides.
You lie well, too.
Hey, listen. Don't speak through town now. No, I really do. My sister's always like, don't you ever have to get anywhere?
Oh, I used to,
I'm a super pokey lady.
I used to do that.
I can't.
Okay, brownie starts in 10 minutes. Can I make it to the store and back again? Can I do that? Yeah, watch.
Really, I even so, I'm like, I'd rather arrive late.
Good evening. Good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Hey, it's my pleasure.
So we have the school administration and committee here to talk to us tonight about an update on your
Yes.
budget. I don't think you're prepared to give us the full
Correct.
Monty tonight, but we appreciate you coming in. I think everybody knows, everybody in the FinCom. I'm Dana Warren, you know her. Chair.
Chair.
John Bayer,
Mike Hart.
Kevin Lyons.
Bill Hodges.
I'm Hayden Rivers, I'm actually a resident of Boxford. I'm on the capital task force.
Welcome.
So, should I close now? It's,
It has to be open.
Is that all right?
But I will
Oh,
ask
yeah,
them to
yeah.
slide down.
Okay. Great, thank you. Yes, I did want to provide an update on where we are in the budget process, and as you stated, the actual budget proposal from the administration is due to us on Friday, and then I can post it publicly the following Monday. So you'll have it in your hands this time next week, I think. But I did want to just give a quick update on the process, and then I invited Hagen Rivers, who's also on the Masco School Committee from Boxford, to come and talk a little bit about the warrant article that we're proposing. Again, details it's not completely worked out, but wanted to alert you to where we were with that. She's leading the District Capital Investment Task Force that our chairman formed early in the school year to focus on the bigger picture, refreshing the infrastructure of the building over time as the original bonds are retired. And we know, based on the Habib report that we received a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, thank you, that in spite of how wonderful the building looks from the outside, that it's time to start refreshing various parts of it to extend its useful life. So, highlights of where we are. The budget subcommittee, which I chair, has been working closely with the administration for quite a few months now, and where we are now with it is the administration has already shared with us a 2.5 FTE reduction based on declining enrollment, and with that, the so-called breathing cost increase is about 2.2%. So we know that it is certainly a challenging environment to keep the costs down as much as we can. The administration brought a number of proposals to the budget subcommittee, and several of them are still on the table. As I know, the administration will likely include those in the proposal, and the full committee will start discussing it in a few weeks. These include the creation of a unified health center, which right now the middle school and the high school have separate nurses' offices, and there are a variety of ways in which that is problematic. And by combining them in one space, they would actually have better coverage and provide a higher quality service. And as we've heard, there are the number of kids who have either health issues or emotional issues requiring the visit to the nurse's office is only increasing. So expanding the capacity by combining these into one organization will actually help in that matter. Now this does not include, this is one of the things that was delayed. It was part of the original proposal from the administration, but we've taken it off the table, the capital improvements to actually create a physical space. We're not proposing to do that this year, and it's just not the right time for that. But it does include the bringing in of a manager type.
School nurse and health center administrator.
As a health center administrator. Additionally, one of the, we're mindful that there's, over the next several years, there's some known turnover and there's some likely turnover. And it all has an impact on the HR function at Masco, which has been handled by committee, I guess, is a fair way to describe it. Kevin owns a piece of it, and his executive assistant Olga Langlois does a piece of it, and Susan Givens, the assistant superintendent for finance and operations, she does a piece of it. We know Olga's leaving. Kevin probably isn't going to be around forever, as much as both of us would like that. And obviously, Susan Given, there's always a chance that she may be leaving. So it just, we've been discussing this for years, but it seems to have taken on a greater sense of urgency now. As we know, we're likely to have to replace 1, 2, or 3 of those people over the next several years, and that it's going to make the filling of those positions that much harder if we have to look for someone who has that expertise plus some HR expertise so they can pick up the stuff that these folks have done. So we're considering some HR type person who would own all of that, and thus that would not only make the fulfilling of those positions easier in the future, but frankly it frees them up to do the stuff that frankly they're actually paid to do, the higher level stuff that they're supposed to be doing that they're not able to do because they're doing HR related tasks. Another thing, another addition that has survived up to this point is the addition of a HVAC technician. It's something we've had to pay an outside contractor a substantial amount of money to keep the systems working, and they feel at this point that the right thing to do is to bring it in-house so that we have someone who can do more of the preventative maintenance that will keep the systems running, and also provide faster. There's no concerns about availability since we're not waiting for an outside contractor to respond. And another thing that's at this point, it's still a placeholder, but recall over the last year and a half we've been considering and actually working with the elementary school district in looking at a start time change. Honestly, at this point, not enough of the details have been worked out, so it's honestly becoming increasingly unlikely that it's going to be a part of this year's budget, but at this point, it's still in there, and we'll work that out. All that being said, all that stuff mixed up, where the last numbers we talked about with the administration show around a 5% increase. Our expectation is that will continue to go down, not only by what the administration actually proposes, but what we do as we deliberate over the next month or so. And like I said, it includes that placeholder from start times, which is a pretty significant number right there.
It's because of the buses.
Correct.
Being able to share them.
That's right. That's right. So the basic issue with that is that with a flip, it sounds very simple, shouldn't need any more buses. The problem is that the school days are not the same length, and for some reason, elementary kids take longer to get on and off a bus than high school kids. So it's not, you just can't flip them and ever in the world work the same. So we had a preliminary report from a bus consultant who's looking at this for us, and we're awaiting a final report. And we had a pretty good discussion with him the other night. But there is definitely a possibility that additional buses would be required to make it happen. But it's still to be determined whether, how much that would be. So until that's a pretty solid number, we can't do it. So
What's the driver bill behind making this change?
The primary driver is chronic sleep deficits by teenagers. So is it possible that all of the discussion about staff, the start times, I didn't share that with you last year ad nauseum? Somehow that didn't happen?
I've seen it for years, so I don't remember whether you did.
Okay. Yes, so the long story short, there's over the last several years, there's been a number of rather strong recommendations from a variety of expert groups, including the American Academy of Pediatrics and a host of other groups that have said that there is a chronic sleep problem for adolescents. And the problem, it's not the stuff that I thought when this topic first came up. I initially assumed, well, it's electronics, it's too much homework, it's activities, it's all that stuff. But there is a rather compelling and quite hard to argue with body of research that says that as kids enter adolescence, there are biological changes that go on with them that make it almost impossible for them to go to sleep early enough to get the number of hours they need to get up at 6 o'clock, to get a bus at 7 o'clock and start school at 7:30. So the recommendation is that adolescents should not start school before 8:30.
And what's the difference? I don't mean to dig too deep.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I can talk about this all night.
What's the difference between adolescents today and adolescents 10, 20, 50, 100 years ago?
None.
What's changed?
None. Nothing has changed.
So this is the current scientific opinion?
Well, yes, but I would say the change is that over the last decades, there has been the development of two-tier busing systems where you had high school or adolescents going to school at, starting school 7:30 thereabouts, And whereas historically, that may not have been the case. So.
I did.
So, yeah, it's, you know, where I grew up, I had a, you know, a two-tier system as well. So, but I think that, you know, I think when two-tier busing systems were created, people thought that, well, it makes sense that the older kids should go earlier than the younger kids. No science behind that, but it just sort of made common sense that you would do that. Now there is science that says that's exactly the opposite of what you do, of what you should do, and that the younger kids actually, if they need to, they can go to bed earlier. It's not a big deal for them, and they're up and at 'em earlier, you know, than their older peers. So, you know, there is a pretty hard to refute body of evidence. And the bottom line is that these are the recommendations. It's not like we you know, grabbed onto a research report and ran with it. There are lots and lots of organizations have examined that research and said, absolutely, this is what we need to do. It's not easy, but it's what we need to do.
Is there a cost estimate at this point of what, a ballpark cost, what we're talking about to make that kind of a change?
Well, the placeholder that we were using, I think, was around $350 for some new buses. Yeah.
That would be the Masconomic share of the
So
bus
the
contract.
elementary budgets would go up too.
Yes.
Yes,
So the
yes.
Topsfield elementary
Yeah,
budgets
so
would
that's
go
in
up by
the
like
investment.
$100K.
That's
Yeah.
not in there.
Right. Could you
not in
change
elementary.
the start time difference to get around that?
Well, that's one of the things that,
Like, I mean, have high
yeah.
school start at 10?
Then you run into sports problems.
Yes, that's
That's not a bus
definitely,
issue though, the
No,
sports people don't care about buses.
Well, the school
Yeah.
goes till 4 o'clock in the
Yeah.
afternoon, you can't.
yeah, the impact on after-school activities,
Activities.
yes, definitely is a part of the
Priority.
equation. You know, it's
Yeah.
absolutely, that should definitely be part of the community discussion.
Right,
Because
yeah,
depending on how, you know, what we think are our priorities,
Right.
you know, that's what,
John,
you know, we should
did you
do.
say the elementary school was around 100?
I guessed that just based
They don't have a
on.
placeholder and it's not in their, they have no additional buses
Yeah.
in their current model, they do not have it in there, it would be added to.
They're assuming this doesn't happen at this point, basically.
No, they're seeing to see what happens.
Yeah, so their budget is assuming nothing
No,
changes.
no, they don't have numbers yet, they're also waiting for the bus
Oh.
consultants to tell them a number.
Okay.
I'm
Oh,
just
so they have a
trying-
hole, I'm sorry.
We're a little bit ahead of the elementary budgets
Okay.
in our development, so we have to put some placeholders in a little bit in advance of when they do.
I'm just trying to understand the order of magnitude we're talking about. So your order of magnitude is 350 for all of Masco. And then the elementary schools, would that be a similar number for all of the elementary schools?
And so share it among the three towns.
It'd be a little bit less because Masconomic pays 57% of the cost of
Okay,
every bus.
so the 350 is 57%.
And the towns don't have an equal number of buses, Topsfield has the fewest, so your number would be less than a third, I would say. Of the,
Because we have fewer.
Right, so it would be, if
Few.
it's 350, it might be 300 or something for the, again, the order of
you're getting a
magnitude.
ballpark, yeah.
Yeah.
May I ask a question, Bill?
Yes.
Will there be additional hidden costs from that, getting the teachers to agree to it in the CBA, energy costs, building open late or anything like that?
Certainly there's, there could be, issues with, or costs associated with teacher contracts, there's no question about that. I mean, honestly, that's another reason for, a delay, because then it would become part of the regular cycle. As opposed to if we were to try to do it now, we would have to reopen it. So yes, that's a possibility.
So Bill, are there other municipalities that are looking at this as well? I know it blew up in Boston's face, and I mean, they're still arguing about that. Is this going on in other communities across the Commonwealth?
Oh, yes, absolutely, absolutely. And frankly, I looked at the Boston thing a little bit. I think, one of the things that we were pretty committed to when I was leading the what we call Start Times Advisory Committee, was to having a community-wide dialogue about this, and have a number of opportunities for people to get educated on the topic, to hear expert opinions, to hear from other districts that had done it, to voice their concerns and have them addressed. And there's been numerous opportunities, not just opportunities, there were numerous points of community engagement on this topic. My understanding of the Boston situation, that didn't happen as much as from what I could see, we did it.
That was decided by the school administration, I think.
Yeah, it was just.
And it affected everybody's commutes and getting
Yes.
the kids home.
They
and back
also
and forth.
proposed starting some elementary schools at 7 AM.
Yeah.
It's just a bit much.
But that could
That
happen in our
was,
community as well, that.
Not likely,
It's
no.
not been on the table first back, no.
But it'll affect families and.
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely, it's gonna impact all these things, there's no question about it. At this point, one of the sort of guardrails we put on the process was not having the elementary start before 8. Because historically, they used to start at 8. Hasn't been that long that they've been starting 8:35, 8:40. That's actually been a more recent phenomenon. So right now, the thing is, let's see what we can do with elementary starting at 8. And then Masco starting after that. So we'll see. And I think that, my, like I said, when I was first asked to get involved on the Start Times Advisory Committee, I was, Hagan will certainly tell you, and I imagine others on the school committee would tell you, there was no greater opponent of this topic than me. I didn't buy it, and that's all there was to it. But I read the recommendations, I looked at a lot of the research, and it was hard to come to any other conclusion.
Now he's drinking the Kool-Aid.
So, if that was that important, and you couldn't get more money, what would you want to cut out? Pay for the buses?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Definitely, that's definitely, I think that's
Is this the last thing on your stack, or is it in the middle of your stack of priorities? Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, no, it's hard to say, and I'm just one,
Right.
so I'm just one person on it. I'll tell you this, just
Yeah.
for me, I definitely, I think, we're right now, one of the big issues is impact on after-school activities. Now, there are some people in the community who think that is most important. There are some people who don't, who think, and honestly, I'm probably more of the latter. I love sport activities. I think that's fantastic. But if that's going to either not enable us to do something which has been proven to be one of the most important things you can do for the health and well-being of our young people, then we got to look at that hard. We definitely need to look at that hard. So, it's from what I've read, the the benefits associated with this are you know, extraordinary. So it's really, it really makes me want to find some way to make it happen. But obviously, I'm a taxpayer too. And I represent lots of taxpayers, just like you guys. So I know we don't have you know, an unlimited pot of money to just throw at this. So we've got to think hard about what our priorities are.
So this would not be an FY19 action. It's pretty late in the year. You don't get much done between now and then.
It's looking unlikely, yes.
Okay.
But it is in there still, and
Yep.
you know, for the school committee to talk about, because when we you know, started, earlier on, you know, we frankly thought we'd be further along this process than we are. But
The amount of dialogue that you would need to get something done by May for town meeting is pretty extensive.
I think so.
And community outreach and the conversations, the implications, and having the groundswell of support that it
Sure.
would take.
I mean, honestly, I think, you know, last year, I think we because we had a sustained conversation about it, I almost think we've kind of taken a step back, at least as far as community engagement is concerned. So that effort needs to be jacked up.
So just as a parent of a student who is part of this, there's been a massive amount of communication over the past year to the population of the parents of parents. What I do think, and to your point, is that there probably hasn't been a whole lot of communication beyond that, which would cause a lot of skepticism outside of those parents. A whole lot of skepticism.
Like if you let them start later, they just
They
stay up later.
Exactly.
Right.
So, I mean, to your point, I think the communications to date have been great for the school community, for the parents of the children in the school. But to get support in the entire community, we need some more.
Yeah, and what I'm challenged with a bit in this conversation, I have two children, one in college and one in high school. And my personal experience is that when they have to get up, they get up. When they don't have to, they sleep.
Until noon?
Yeah, I mean, whatever they want to do. And I haven't had the communication, that's a great point. I know very little about this conversation. So, and there are a lot of taxpayers in my boat that don't have the kids in the school.
Absolutely.
Not that we're not supportive of the schools. So I don't need to apply that all. So, I don't know if we want to stay on this. Is there anything else on the operating side that you're thinking about, or do you want to move to the capital piece? Or do you want to go back and ask questions about the things you already talked about?
I could. Well, actually, why don't you do the capital piece?
You bet. Okay, so I just want to give a light rundown. I can dive into details. We are still finalizing here, so I'm giving you a snapshot of where we're at. As you probably know, the last time we bonded and did work on Masco at a large scale was 2001. And the building is starting to show some signs of aging. I think you're familiar with the Habib report, which outlines a lot of the heavy wear and tear that the building's been experiencing despite valiant efforts by our team to keep systems working. We're starting to have some breakdowns. So the theme for this year's warrant article really continues the theme last year. There's some safety items, which we saw some last year, and security items, but really we're focusing around preservation. Trying to keep the building in good working order so that we can get to the finish line, to the point where we can, as the old bonds expire, rebond and start our next capital plan. So this is really about kind of keeping things in working order until then. We've got 12 projects planned for capital work this coming year. The total cost, and I'm gonna start with the big number, and then we're gonna go down. So the total cost of the 12 projects is $678,000.
Just confirm, this is total cost, not
not anybody's
Not any-
share.
no better.
Correct,
Yes.
correct. Well, not even that yet, so
Yeah.
hold on just a sec. There's gonna be a variety of funding sources coming from internal to Masconomet, which is gonna total $128,500 of that, which is Masco's portion essentially that we're paying for toward that work. So the current planned work is, this is the number you would multiply out, is $549,500. And that's Topsfield share, it comes just under 150 for that.
How much?
150,000.
And this is not been fed into the Topsfield capital plan yet. Kelly doesn't necessarily know about it. So when we gave her a guideline of, 300,000 for capital, let's see if we can afford it, she wasn't thinking that half of that was going to Masco.
So I can walk through a couple of the big ticket items, if that helps. We have
But like it goes away.
Yeah, I would love that to happen. We have $140,000 in roof repairs that we need to make. We have a rubberized roof on the building. We have leaks. We don't want that to get worse because that leads to even more expensive things.
Is that under warranty?
It is no longer under warranty. That roof was installed.
It is
No
not?
longer.
This is
It's
just a small.
Was it a 20-year warranty?
I do not know the age of the warranty, but I know it's no longer under warranty.
This is just patching a small section of the roof.
Now, these are large areas on the roof, $140,000 worth of patches. Yeah.
Seems a lot different than what we paid for the elementary schools as far as cost.
But this is the fix it.
This is
the
those
other
are
two
patches.
This is just.
These are patches.
Patches.
We will need to replace the roof in about 5 years when we're able to do the capital work. This is just to get us there.
To keep it from leaking,
To keep
really.
it from leaking, mold, all the usual things that happen when there are holes in your roof. As my contractor always likes to say, your roof has one job and one job only, and that's to keep the weather out. Don't put holes in it for any reason. He was lecturing me about skylights, but So we also have a $98,000 item, which is to increase the size of the gas pipes going to our HVAC systems. I don't know if you're aware that we've had intermittent problems with HVAC in the building. We've had some breakdowns. This gas pipe is so small that it's causing tripping problems, which is increasing the wear on these systems. We really want these HVAC systems to survive until the capital plan is open to us. Otherwise, that'll be a substantial cost. So we want to make that investment now. And the other big ticket item is $92,000 for Liebert air conditioning systems. I didn't even know what these were until I joined this committee. Those are to keep your IT, your computers and networking systems in good shape. In the event of a power outage, we had power outages over the summer, and those systems were being exposed to some pretty high temperatures, and we want to preserve them.
So you have no Lieberts or similar systems in place now?
We have 2 air conditioning units. One of them broke down over the summer, and the other one is the same age and has not yet broken down. But we don't feel it's a good idea to take the risk with the equipment that those systems are protected.
Did we repair the one that broke down?
We did. It took all summer to get that technician in, which is why an HVAC technician is on our hire list. Our systems are now so old that there's a limited number of people who will respond to those calls, and the parts take a long time to come in. So maintenance and keeping them running has become essentially a full-time job.
How are they maintained now by an outside contractor?
They're maintained by a mix of the Doug Batchelor staff, the Director of Operations staff. They do the cleaning the
Filters,
and
lubrication,
all of
cleaning,
those things.
that routine maintenance is done in-house.
But the repairs are outside.
Mhm.
It's getting more and more costly to the point where we felt having a full-time person was a better bet, and that it would get us better results as well. Most of the staff worked over the summer in the building uncooled.
So I'm sorry, because that was one of my questions.
Yeah.
So by insourcing instead of outsourcing,
Yeah.
the HVAC technician, you believe that's a cost savings
We do,
opportunity? Okay.
we do,
And improved service.
yes.
Right. Do you have an estimate of what the cost savings is on that?
We don't. We were gonna do that at our last meeting, and we fell out due to the flu. That's one of the items that we're.
Because you must have a number of what you spend for service
Yes.
externally and some
Well, we know what we've
portion of
spent the
that.
last couple of years, which is, it's been rising, so, part of it is a projection too of where we think that might be going. But yeah.
So that's 98, 140, and 92, when those are three numbers you just gave us.
Yes.
So, but the systems for the dedicated servers, you have a dedicated server room?
We have two,
Two.
one in each building, high school and middle school. I'll just run down the other items. 70,000 for electrical work